All right. All right, everyone, welcome to our Lunch and Lead series. Today, we're honored to have Brady Reinke from the New Berlin, Wisconsin School District. Brady, let me see, hang on, I gotta find my notes here. Brady's role is Director of Elementary Teaching and Learning, and I don't really know what he does, but all I know is that he reached out to me in March when I was in Hawaii, I might add. And we actually had a meeting while I was in the tropics and with his team, and I was blown away by the enthusiasm and interest they had on improving outcomes for kids. And so they are on a journey right now in New Berlin. His superior, I don't know what your role is, Kelly, either, but she's here today. And I am just thrilled to have the enthusiasm in a Wisconsin school district that we are now moving forward in many, many different projects. So without further ado, Brady Reinke.
All right, well, Donna, thank you so much. Yeah, I think we had it scheduled for when you're in Hawaii, but then something with the time zone, and we might have had to reschedule.
Oh, did we? I don't remember. I had another meeting then too. I was in Hawaii meeting with people.
Anyway, I'm gonna share my.
It doesn't matter.
I'm gonna share my screen quick because I've got a presentation. Can you see that?
I can.
Okay, cool. And I'm just gonna go to slideshow. I was gonna start by just having people just throw in the chat just where you're from, what's your role, who are you, where are you at in your science of reading journey. But you don't need to do that if you don't want to, but you can, because I'm not a Zoom person, so I don't really actually navigate Zoom very well. So if you don't do it, that's okay. So I'm gonna get going real quick. Just a little bit about me. I grew up in Phillips, Wisconsin, which is a small northern Wisconsin town. More cows than people. I went through UW-Madison, Concordia, and then working on my PhD at Cardinal Stritch. I actually taught kindergarten for 6 years. It was about as long as I could take it. It was driving me, got to the point where it was driving me crazy. But that really fueled some of my interest and passion for reading development, because I, like probably many teachers in our classrooms today, had no idea what I was doing and never knew what was coming next. So I think I just guessed for a very long time. I came to New Berlin as an assistant principal, was a principal at 2 different buildings, and then I'm now the director of elementary teaching and learning in the school district. You can see my picture. I have my wife, 2 kids who actually both go to our district. They're a driving passion for why reading is so important. My oldest daughter, Claire, she's in 6th grade. She went through a balanced literacy system, and she came into kindergarten loving to read, very interested in reading, was always a good reader, but progressively got worse at reading. And I really truly believe it's because we missed her as a system. There were a lot of things we did or didn't do because and didn't even pick up on, because she was always a good reader, but she just memorized the words. And now she's in 6th grade, and it really, 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 really is hard for her. So she doesn't like it. My son is in 4th grade. Same story. He's a really good reader right now, loves reading, but I think he's got some of the same holes as Claire. So that actually spurred some of the change that we did. Also on the call, Dr. Kelly Sanders. Dr. Sanders is my boss. She's our chief academic officer. She was a middle school teacher, elementary principal, district PD coordinator, and now she's the chief academic officer in the district. What I will say about Dr. Sanders is that she is very good at keeping me grounded. I really appreciate that about her. We have a little system of make a parking lot, and when you get an idea, write it on the parking lot before you do anything, because usually we'll be doing way too many things. So I appreciate her leadership in that, and she's been a great guide through the whole process. And I'm going to talk about today. I'm really going to just talk about our process, why we decided the science of reading is best for our district, and kind of how we went about building that change. Again, I'm not sure on the call who's doing what or where, but hopefully you can take a few things from our journey, and we can share some things with you. So just a little bit about New Berlin. We're a population about 40,000. We're just a suburb of Milwaukee. We're actually like 2 suburbs outside of Milwaukee. Population, we got about 40,000 people in our school. We got right around 4,300 kids in the district. We are, maybe a prototypical district, suburban school district, relatively affluent, majority white. And then you can see the rest of our demographics there. So that's just a little bit about New Berlin. It's kind of right where the arrows are there, very close to the Milwaukee County Zoo. If you ever want to visit New Berlin, it's a nice zoo. Anyway, School District New Berlin, we have a record of excellence. In fact, our motto is expect excellence. You can see our data on our school report card. Every year, the state of Wisconsin gives a school report card. Every year, we significantly exceed expectations on that report card. Finish in the top 95% of all school districts in the state, in every category they score us on. And I don't say that to brag. I say that because really the point of our talk is everybody needs to embrace the science of reading, not just schools that are struggling in reading, because by all metrics we probably aren't struggling in reading as much as other districts throughout our state and country are. Our true belief in the district is to make sure our kids leave our system college, career, or life ready. And really, we were a leader in the college and career readiness work before it was actually cool to do so. We were doing this stuff 11 or 12 years ago, and now it's really taken on a head of steam. In fact, we were probably the first in the area. I know we're the first in the state, maybe the first around the country to develop our college and career ready dashboard for our secondary schools, and now we have them for our elementary and our middle schools as well. It's to the point where sometimes we've gone to conferences and actually people are presenting exactly what our dashboard looks like, and they're presenting it as theirs, and we're like, oh, cool. I mean, not that we're mad about that. It's just kind of neat to see your work in other people's districts. So it's really important. So again, this concept of college and career and life readiness is really important. It's been a really foundation of our school district for forever since I've been here. But we do know, and we've noticed, and our school board has pointed out, and the world can see. We take the forward exam in the state of Wisconsin, and our forward ELA results have been stagnant or gone down. I mean, everybody's went down, I guess, in 2021, but they've been pretty stagnant or even gone down a little bit for the last number of years. The reality is we could have kept doing what we were doing and probably stayed just about the same. There are kids in our school district that will learn to read no matter what we do. And that's just the reality of it. But and again, like the school report card and those kinds of things, like the public thinks everything is okay and we're doing a great job. But when you get to it, third grade is kind of always that year that everybody talks about. When we look at our third grade reports, there are 2 different metrics that we use there. The last 2 years, 53% and 52% of our kids have been proficient respectively. And then in our CBM scores in third grade in the fall, you can see the results there. So really, when you do the math, we've got about 280 kids on the forward exam that weren't proficient in third grade, and 178 kids not reading at benchmark with their fluency and accuracy. So again, we've been good for a long time, but we haven't been great. We have a certain number of kids, and then when you start looking at a slide like this, we know, and as we started talking about this, we started wrestling with these numbers that 2/3 of kids who cannot read proficiently by 4th grade will wind up in jail or on welfare. And then we did the math, and yeah, it's math and a reading presentation, but oh my goodness, if that's true, then because we didn't teach reading to write to a certain amount of kids, 187 over the last couple of years, they aren't meeting our vision of a graduate. They're not leaving college, career, and life ready. They're they're the ones that may end up in jail or on welfare, and that really started the conversation with us. Another really interesting thing, and maybe you haven't seen this, there's a site called Education Consumers, and what they've done is they've played on this idea of in many states where they take state test scores. And again, we could have arguments all day as if the state test scores really measure reading proficiency or whatever, but they took third grade reading scores, and then they use kind of that same projection I just talked about, and they said they tell you, well, what percentage of kids would be either statistically would drop out before they get to graduating, or be underprepared when they leave us. And then they give you a total of what that would cost the taxpayer each year. So we looked at that, and over the last 3 years, because of the scores that we had, they estimated that about $9.8 million it would cost our the taxpayers of the United States. So that started getting to be like, oh my gosh, like this is a problem. And even though it's only 187 kids, like this is an issue for us, because our school board and our community is very focused on making sure we're good stewards of the tax revenues that we get. And when something comes out, a report like this, it's like, oh wow, that's not such a good thing. So we got together and we thought, maybe there's another way, and we're just not reaching our kids very well. So that led us to Dr. Sanders' first major leadership decision in this whole thing is typically when we do kind of a curriculum review or curriculum adoption, much like you do, we cram it all into 1 year, and it's a crazy year where we pull together teams and we review things and things like that. Dr. Sanders, I think, and our superintendent, Joe Garza, they said, you know what, the reading is too important. It's something that's way too important, and we're just stagnant and we're not doing very well. So instead of 1 year, let's take 3 years. Year one's going to be a learn year. You need to learn everything that's out there. Year two is when we're going to review our resources. Then year three is really going to be our implementation year. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about how that played out. And then, after that is going to just be continuous improvement. So I'm going to talk a little bit through this learn, review, and implement year. And maybe if you guys, on the call are in this position as your district, first I would say slow down. It's okay. The research is not going to go away, but go fast too, because kids move through our system really, really quickly. So the first thing, year one, this was I think Dr. Sanders' charge to both me and Kelly, who's our director of secondary teaching and learning, is read everything and listen. That what she meant by that, and what our superintendent meant by that, was it's okay if you guys spend your whole day or 3 or 4 days in a week just reading stuff, reading what's out there, figure out what's out there, read it, read the research, read everything. You got to know what's going on. And both my colleague Kelly and I really one took advantage of that. We were able to read just about everything. And there were a lot of things that were taken off our plates, I think, that allowed us to really get in the research and everything. And then second was listen, like talk to teachers, talk to parents, talk to kids, know what's going on. One of the interesting things, in my opinion, in a district office position, because I've gone through the whole things, is when you're a teacher, you think, oh, my principal never listens to me. And then when you leave being a teacher to being a principal, you you go, I'm never going to lose that. I'm gonna always, know what's going on in my building. And then you become a principal and you really don't. And then you keep moving through that in the district office. So we were really challenged to do two things. Like, you got to know everything that's going on and you've got to listen. So we did. We went to classrooms. We spent a lot of time in classrooms. Here's what we saw. We saw kids going in and getting a quick mini lesson, and then laying around their rooms reading. Our teachers working really hard, and then doing all these conferring things while our kids were reading. And our teachers were going crazy. Our teachers were because they were all trying to move around and do all kinds of things, and our kids were just reading, which is a great thing. But we didn't really know if they were reading. They were staring at books, but we weren't quite sure. And so the first conversation that Kelly, my counterpart in the secondary, had was, what's the difference between being effective and being efficient, right? If you think about it, and I put the more reading in a math discussion, you have 720 instructional days between kindergarten and first grade. For us, we're a K-6 elementary system. We have 1,260 instructional days between kindergarten and sixth grade, and then you can see what it is between kindergarten and 12th grade. And when you sit back and you really sit back and you think and you watch and you think, it's great that kids are sitting there for 45 minutes staring at books, but is that efficient? Are we getting all the stuff they need to learn? And we came to the conclusion that we probably thought not. We also came to the understanding that we were killing our teachers because our teachers were, spinning thousands of different plates, trying to figure out where every single kid was at and trying to really meet all the kids' needs, which is really a good thing, but it was killing them. So we really, as we got in the classrooms, we knew that was happening, but as we got in the classrooms and saw it more and more and more, it was like, wow, this needs to change a little bit. We also sat in our PLC, professional learning community times, and we've been a professional learning community district for a long time. When we first got here, we had the DeFores in our district. Obviously, they're not with us anymore, but and we focused heavily on those 4 professional learning community questions. What do we want our kids to learn? How do we know if they learned it? How will we respond when they don't? How will we respond if we think they already know it? Well, what happened is our teams, or our collaborative teams, spent the majority of their time on those first 2 questions because they were always trying to define, well, what is it we want our kids to know and learn, and how are we going to do it? And they were creating their own assessments, and they were having discussions, which were really good discussions, but that took up from 2 really important questions that we never got to. So that activity in our PLCs was really kind of deficient there. Then we hopped out and we looked at everything that was out there on just in the popular media. Obviously, APM reports, when we started, Emily Hanford had just started coming out with some of her initial work, slamming, the units of study. We were a units of study district, so that was hard. We read The Knowledge Gap, and we've seen the trailers and actually now seen the film, The Truth About Reading. We also hopped on we figured out which states had different, approved lists of resources. We read all their reviews of all the resources that were out there. And then we started looking at legislation, right? Because I think one of our jobs is as district leaders is to look at, well, where are the winds going here? And we started seeing things like, Mississippi having all that success. We started seeing, and we started wondering why. We set up meetings with Kimiana Burke, and we set up actually meetings with Donna. That's how we got to know Donna initially. And we wanted to figure out what's going on, because we didn't want to put a lot of work into something that all of a sudden in a couple of years, the legislature in our state might be like, you're going to do something different. So we wanted to kind of see where the winds were blowing. And that proved to be really helpful for us. We talked to parents. Parents our parents, they were really frustrated with reading levels. Our teachers would say they're a level B or a level C or whatever. And our parents were like, what is that? And then two, it became like this competition for our kids. We found out grammar was non-existent in our elementaries, and we knew that, but our parents actually started telling us that. Capitalization, punctuation, spelling was an afterthought. There was no systematic. We didn't have a systematic approach. Handwriting was horrible. We saw that, especially during the pandemic. We had a parent that said, my fourth grader still guesses at words and then moves on really quickly, even if she says the wrong word and she has no idea about it. We knew for years. We only have one system in our school district, or one shift in our school district. We have K6 buildings and then 712 buildings, but we knew that transition was just not good. We knew that partially because we were doing the units of study in our K6 buildings. Then our secondary buildings were kind of doing their own thing, which actually was really interesting. And then that was another thing that when Dr. Sanders, when we met with her a lot, she would say, we need to have consistency at that shift because it was really important so kids had the same language and terminology and those kinds of things. And then one thing that our parents told us, and actually our teachers told us a lot, was our students are writing they're really creative writers and they write a lot, but they write like a 12-page run-on sentence because they don't know how to punctuate and those kinds of things. So we listen to parents, we listen to kids. We got out in every one of our buildings, six different buildings, and we talked to kids from every one. And what was really, really interesting is one thing our kids told us is we learn the same thing every single year. It's the same skills every single year. At one point, there was a defiant little fifth grade girl that stood up and said, I'm starting to think my teachers just don't trust that I learn this stuff because they teach it to me every single year. And that was an issue. They were really upset. They said they were really upset they didn't learn about stuff. They just learned all these skills over and over and over. They really wanted more nonfiction. Kids talked about wanting to learn history, science, birds, dinosaurs, outer space, all that stuff. Our kids say we don't really know grammar. We get to our state test and we have no idea what that is. And they also said we need more test-like questions, which is really interesting. That our kids were saying, we get to some of these big tests and we have no idea what to do because it's hard. And then we looked at the data, we dug into it. I mean, I think like everybody else did. So we took that first year and just learned and listened and really just filled our heads and explored our data and listened to our kids, listened to our parents, listened to our teachers, listened to everybody. And we came to this conclusion, holy crap. The way that, and I said this, the way I learned it is in college was maybe not right. The way I taught is not right, nor was the PD I had probably right. The majority of my teachers don't really know how to teach reading. We've led implementation of resource and practices that are actually more harmful than good. We said we've done professional development for years in things that now we know is probably not right. And that was a good cry moment, I think, as with anybody. We're just like, holy cow, this is not good. We have to change that. So then we got in this discussion of what do we do? We can improve the implementation of our current resource, right? I think that's where some people on the team were at, is no, we just need to improve that. We need to just train our teachers really, really well and the new evidence-based practices, and then kind of keep what we're doing. But some people are like, well, let's adjust the current resource, or supplement it, or find a new resource. Those were kind of one of the first decisions we had to make. One of the things we then looked at was, I don't know if anybody's looked at the opportunity myth, but it's just fascinating reading. And when you look at it, essentially they went in and observed 1,000 lessons. Of course, these were not in like a affluent middle class school like ours. They were in, you know, urban areas. But it was fascinating that, you know, students were working about 88% of the time in those observations. They met the demands, what was being asking them about 71%, and over half brought home A's and B's, which was actually pretty good. But only about 70% of the assignments actually met the level standards and expectations. And then you kind of start thinking, our students maybe were engaged, but boy, they in this particular study, the kids weren't being held to the right expectations. And then we kind of started thinking, well, wait a minute, if our teachers really aren't sure how to teach reading that well, and they taught reading the way we wanted them to, and they did it well, but maybe it wasn't the right way. And if they're not really understanding what rigor is in reading, do we really, is it just about us like tweaking things, or is it about us going cold turkey change? We also started thinking about this, right? Like, if you think about, you know, like the world, it's made up of millions and millions of different atoms that form different things that all have different functions and different purposes. When you think about your body, the same thing, right? Like we all have cells, and all the cells make organs, and I'm not a science major, so if I mess that up, and they make systems, and every system is meant to do something a little bit different to make this wonderfully forming body. You look at nature, right? Like you look at a beehive, there's like certain jobs in beehives. There's some research that you can look at where like even 3 or 4-year-olds know that, like, you know, there are people in the world that have different levels of expertise, and you know, that knowledge is clustered, and kids can identify that pretty easily. But then you start thinking like, are we using those same things that are happening all over with our teachers, or are we expecting our teachers to do it all? So think about this, right? Like, think about your favorite teacher growing up, or the dream teacher for your kids or your grandkids. Just really quickly write down, like what would make that person a great teacher? What makes that person a great teacher, or that dream teacher a great teacher? You can just think of it for a second. So on your list, what were those dream teachers doing? Were they composers and conductors? Were they out in front of the classroom? Were they being a composer? Or are they somebody sitting, making tests and coming up with learning targets and all those kinds of things? You know, unfortunately, we came to this conclusion in our district that we were asking our teachers really to do both. We were asking them to be the conductors of the composers of what was happening in their classrooms. You know, all that time spent talking about learning targets, and which is a good thing, but like really doing that, and their assessments and developing those. And then we asked them to go into their classrooms and be the composer in the classroom, and really, you know, build relationships with kids, and know those kids and know them academically, and come up with what they need to do next. And there's no wonder why our teachers were drowning for a very long time. So we decided, you know what, it's time to find a new resource. We're asking, you know, we're doing, like, we just need to get rid of what we've been doing, and just try something new. We decided that we're gonna review a bunch of resources, and we're gonna find one, and we're gonna just jump all in with it. And that's the way it's gonna be. So then we started a new challenge. Like, oh my God. Now we've got to this point of we're going to start reviewing resources. We're going to ask teachers to do things completely different. And by the way, we're going to tell them maybe the things we've been doing for a long time, and we'll own that, isn't right. So how do we do it? Well, you know, one of the things you can look at is, like, Cotter came up with this 8 steps in change, right? We knew there was a significant change, so we had to start getting everybody ready for that change. So we kind of loosely followed this whole model. it's something that you probably read in your grad school classes and we're like, yeah, okay, whatever, it's a short book, so I'll read it. And then, and then kind of forgot about it. But we kind of got it back and we're like, okay, so this is what's going to happen. So I'm going to kind of just walk through now. All right, once we decided it was time to make that change, how do we do it, and how was it successful? So the first thing that we started doing was just kind of increasing the urgency with our staff, right? All staff. We had them look at digestible pieces of the data that the team had dug into. And we also made a really interesting shift from, we had done map testing for a very long time. We shifted to FastBridge. I'm not advocating for FastBridge. I'm not a rep for FastBridge, but one of the things that it did is it pointed some things out. We would start walking down the hallways of our buildings, and the teacher would come over and say, hey, what's morphology? Or what's this? And that was like, oh boy, we've got a long ways to go. But it started that little bit of a conversation. We weren't dropping on them that we're gonna make a huge shift. We've been teaching things wrong. It was just like, there's something out there that I don't know. And then we started just trickling things to our staff that we had come across in our studies, our research. And we also, then we built this team, right? We built a team of teachers, like I'm sure most people do. And we got them really deep into the data. And we also had them start looking at like, okay, what is the research actually saying? And we actually pulled an article, and I can share it with you, Donna, later, by Pimentel and Lieben, and they did a really nice job of synthesizing a lot of the research that was out there for our team. And they lay out really 5 accelerators that they say for growing readers and writers. And we took those 5 accelerators and we developed our checklist for, as we review a resource around those. And we wanted to make sure that every part of those 5 things was in any resource that we looked at. So then the next step we had to look at was let's get the right vision, right? Where are we going? And this is where, again, Dr. Sanders came in and helped us, because for years, and we've always struggled with what's the right metric to use, what's the right whatever to use. Well, the first one is we weren't going to change our mission and our vision of our district. Our mission and our vision is still to graduate kids that are ready for college, career, and life. And but when we looked at our little guy, we call Alex, Alex the Achiever, actually, he, in the middle of him, it says knowledge, skills, and dispositions. And one of the important and critical parts of our knowledge, skills, and dispositions was reading. We came to this realization that, we want all kids to leave our system reading, not 60%, not 70%, not 80%. We want all kids. So we developed these 2 goals. The research is out there. 95% of kids can learn the skills to be able to learn to read fluently and accurately. And so we said by 3rd grade, we want 95% of our kids read fluent and accurately. And then we said, what? But on our Ford exam, we want to be the best in the state. We want to be above 80% as a district, 80% or above. And Dr. Sanders really pushed us on that. And then she also said, but we're at like 56% right now, so we're not going to do this overnight. And so it's like, oh yeah, well, we wanted to, but we weren't gonna. So we put together an 8-year plan. By 2030, we're saying in our district that 95% of 3rd graders, and I think we'll achieve this one a little bit sooner than that, 90% of our 3rd graders will be reading fluently and accurately, and 80% of our kids globally will be proficient or advanced on our Ford exam. Now, our principals freaked out when we showed that to them. They were not, they thought that was unrealistic. And we said, you're right, in a year. But then when we started talking about 8 years, they're like, okay, that's more doable. So that was the numbers we were going to shoot for and we were going to go for. And we had the research actually to back us up. the next one is, communicate for buy-in. The first person I think we had to convince that this was the right way to go, because we're talking about making like this big scale change, right? And the first person in our district that I think we had to convince was our superintendent, which he's a passionate person. He's an awesome superintendent. He's great to work for. And sometimes change with anybody can be hard. And so we try to get him the knowledge gap. If any of you read Natalie Wexler's book, The Knowledge Gap, it's phenomenal. I think we got it for him. We handed it to him, and he took it home and probably put it on a pile. I'm not saying it's just, superintendents got a lot of things to do. They don't sit around and read books, and they're not like me who can sit here and read because that's what my boss tells me to do. So I kept saying, did you read the book yet? No. Did you read the book yet? No, she's just ripping off. He had read there was a book, The Knowing Doing Gap. He's like, she's just ripping off the Knowing Doing Gap. It's fine. I'm like, no, you have to read the book. You have to read the book. So I was on him about it. And I think Kelly was on him about it. The other Kelly was on him about that. And finally, one night at 11 o'clock, I kid you not, I was laying in bed and my cell phone started ringing. I looked, it's the superintendent. Well, when the superintendent calls you at 11 o'clock at night, you're kind of like, what's going on? My wife's like, who is it? I'm like, that's superintendent. She's like, are you going to answer it? I'm like, I don't know, probably should. It's probably an emergency. She's like, yeah, just be quiet. The kids are sleeping. So I picked up. I said, hey, Joe, what's going on? He said, I can't believe I did it. I'm like, can't believe you did what? He's like, I let it happen. I'm like, you let what happen? He's like, I signed off on that, on the reading instruction that we've been doing. And then he said, I can't believe I did it. I said, oh, you finished the book? He's like, yeah, I read the book. And he said, my son went through our system and is a struggling reader all through. And we had talked about his son for years. He was a struggling reader. And my daughter, she gets to college and she's like her college entrance stuff, and she's struggling with writing. I let it happen. And then of course it's the whole, now that we know better, we've got to do better. And he's like, we're doing better. That's it. And he hung up with the phone. So it's like, okay, we convinced our superintendent. Now it's time to this is getting more and more and more and more real. Cause I think Kelly and I were all on that same page, but now he's like, and then you come in the next day and he's like, whatever it takes, we're doing it. Okay. So we did that. And then it was, well, how do we communicate this to our staff, right? Because we have been trickling stuff out little by little, getting them to read stuff, having them watch videos. They send emails back or respond like, oh, that's going to be really hard. That could be really hard. I don't know if I agree with that. So it's like, what do we do? So probably about this time, not a little bit, it's probably mid-October of last year. I think same conversation maybe with the superintendent. We were having that conversation, and it may or may not have been over a drink after work one night. And he's like, well, where are we at with the science of reading thing? Where are we at? What are we gonna do? Like, what are we doing? I'm like, well, he's like, how are we gonna get our staff, know what they need to do? And I said, well, we've been trickling stuff out. He's like, I don't want to trickle stuff out anymore. We have to, again, that's the way, we do things. And he's like, I'm like, well, we have a PD day coming up. What do you think we should do? He's like, we have to go big. It's got to be big. Whatever it is, it's got to be big. And Kelly's smiling. I can see it because she's thinking, I'm the lady that's got to figure out how we're going to pay for all this. But yeah, it's going to be big. So it's got to be big. It's got to be big. Okay. So I started sending emails out, probably from a bar stool at Buffalo Wild Wings in West Dallas. Hey, we're doing this. We reached out to Emily Hanford. She got back to us right away. Said, I'm working on something big right now, which we've come to learn that it's sold a story, which was actually a good thing to work on. We reached out to Natalie Wexler. Natalie Wexler got back to us right away and said, yeah, I'm happy to do it. I'll keynote for you guys. So she came in and did an hour and 15-minute virtual presentation for our whole entire staff. She was really good because she helped everybody to see their part in reading. our high school science teachers, our high school social studies, our middle school math teachers, everybody, that whole message of we have to build background knowledge really resonated with our staff, and they started to see it. And then for our elementary staff, we followed that up with some work with the Simple View of Reading and Scarborough's Role. Really, it was just an introduction. And after that meeting, or after that day, I would say the vast majority of our staff were like, yep, okay, you're right. We need to change. Our committee that was working with us came back and said, yep, we need to change. And by the way, it was really cool because Natalie, she agreed to do this virtual thing for us. And her only stipulation was we had to buy a book for everybody in attendance, which was awesome because then everybody had the book too, which was fantastic. So we started that kind of momentum, right? So our staff kind of knew what they were getting into. And then we selected there was a pretty unanimous selection on the new resource that we were going to use. I'm not going to tell you what resource we're using because I'm not here to sell their product. But it's a really good science aligned knowledge building curriculum. But then it's like, okay, how do we roll this out to everybody? And you know, if you look at Cotter's, his next step is really got to communicate for buy-in. We've got to get everybody to buy in. So we sat down and we really planned out, okay, how are we going to do this? First thing we started to do is trickle out information to our staff. Really, like the company we use has some really good readers and some really good neat stuff that we were able to just start getting out. Then our team, who, you know, our curriculum adoption team, we met with them and said, you just have to build this up. Like, people are going to be afraid, people are going to be scared, people are going to just build it up, just talk about it. Like it's the best thing ever. And they did, which was kind of cool. And then our staff got their resources. Our goal, and it was tricky, but was to have all of our teacher materials in before staff left this last summer. So we could hand teachers their stuff. Some of them left it sitting in their classrooms and didn't do anything with it. Some of them read through it all the first day. And then they had access then to online PD so they could see it. Then our district has flexible PL hours, we call them, where teachers have to do so many hours and they get days off. We offered a summer 4-hour training on just the new resource. And it wasn't from the company, it was from somebody who knew it. And all she did was just kind of walk them through the big overall base level. This is what it is. This is where your kids are going to go. These are some of the routines. This is why you're going to do it, that kind of thing. And then finally, we had this 2-day training, which was just fantastic. And really the goal of that 2-day training was to make sure everybody is ready to teach lesson 1 or unit 1 on the first day of school. And I think everybody left. We also did this. Our principals, we knew they needed to be out ahead of this for 2 things. They needed to have a bigger understanding of the science of reading, and 2, they needed to know the resource. We knew they'd get to know the resource because we have different coaching sessions with them. But we did the AIM Pathways to Literacy training, which was outstanding for our, I think Wisconsin Reads actually was the one that secured the donation with AIM, or helped secure the donation with AIM, or at least communicated the donation that Wisconsin administrators could do this AIM training for free. It was fantastic. It was a collaborative experience across the state. And we got all 8 of our elementary APs and principals into it for free, which was outstanding. Donna, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, the free part, but it was cool. And our principals learned about the science of reading all summer. It was cool because the AIM training, you have to take a pretest, and I got an 87%. I was feeling pretty good, but I had also spent the last 1.5 years just holed up in my office reading about this stuff. But you could tell when the principals started taking it, because you get phone calls from them, and they'd say, so that pretest, did you take it? Yeah, I took it. Like, do you see our scores? No, I don't see your scores. I don't. So like, will it reflect poorly on me if I do bad on the test? Because I don't know, I might have been a little distracted. No, it won't. But what did you get? I got a 41%. I'm like, oh, okay. And then, you know, I had about 3 of those calls from principals, and I had to reassure them that we were not tracking their scores. And that was the point, is to show you that you don't really know what you're taking, but you're going to spend the whole summer learning about this stuff. And they all completed the course and they all passed with flying colors afterwards. But so our principals have been a really, 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 really important part of this. We've really focused on building both their knowledge of the science of reading and the knowledge of our resource. We've got coaching sessions with our resource provider that just for our principals, which has been really, really great. Oh, wrong way. We also, this was another great Dr. Sanders moment. We've had literacy coaches for years. Their job is this, in this whole adoption, every team they meet with every other week, and all they do is they walk through what's coming up in the resource. They walk through the assessments. They walk through just about everything. They hand it to our teachers on a silver platter, and then they talk about concerns and their shoulder to cry on, because there is crying sometimes. But then Dr. Sanders came up with this idea of, hey, you know what? Maybe we should just have a couple people to be like teachers on special assignment. So we've got these teachers on special assignment, and they're great. They're some of our best teachers, and they just got the year, maybe 2 years, I don't know, out of the classroom. And all they're doing is they're spending time, we're identifying different strategic things that they're going to work on, and they're going to model, they're going to support. And again, they're going to talk about concerns and be a shoulder to cry on. And they've been just fantastic. But again, our teachers are getting everything kind of just, this is what we're doing. And then I meet with them every other week. Every week we talk about what are the celebrations, what are the pain points, and then we talk about what are the things that are happening right now that we need to address today, and then what are the things that you guys see that teachers are concerned about a month away, 2 months away, 3 months away, so we can start planning for that. One was parent-teacher conferences. Oh, parent-teacher conferences are coming up, but I don't have a reading level. Okay, let's get out in front of that, and let's give our staff some training, or at least some talking points that they can do in a parent-teacher conference. And we've been able to really pinpoint then our professional learning and our work with our teachers, which has been just fantastic. We really generating short-term wins. Every single meeting that our coaches have, every single meeting we have, we just start with celebrations, and we just celebrate, and we spend 10 minutes at least celebrating what's going on. We also, all classrooms are sharing data. Everybody sees their data. Everybody celebrates their data. It's just a rule that's going from our teams. I meet once a month with the elementary principals. All we do is pull up these assessment spreadsheets, and we just talk about them. What's going well, what's going really good. And then finally, what we found with a knowledge building curriculum is this: we can create really cool experiences for kids. We've said to our staff, our teachers, and our principals that 20 years from now, your kids, God willing, are going to become really good readers and writers because of what we're doing. But when we all look back, what do we remember? We remember the special moments in our elementary school. So 20 or 30 years from now, these kids are going to look back, and they're not going to remember how they learned how to read. They'll know they learned how to read. But what do we do special for them? And our staff has just embraced that challenge. These are some 6th grade teachers who dressed up like doctors for the whole day. They were studying like the yellow fever or something like that. Some story. I don't know the story, but they progressively got worse throughout the day. So they'd like paint their faces differently and things like that. Like they were getting sicker and sicker. One of our schools, they have a coyote mascot, and the kindergarten kids were learning about the 3 little pigs, like the story of the 3 little pigs. So they did a really cool maker activity where they had to build houses. Then the principal dressed up like the coyote and brought his leaf blower to try to blow them down. We saw kindergarten nursery rhyme Olympics. And then we had a principal in 2nd grade dress up like Paul Bunyan and come into all the 2nd grade classes. He even has Babe the Blue Ox there. He had a stuffed dog that he put a blue shirt on. So again, those are just little fun things that our teachers are having fun and talking through. So we're creating those not only academic wins, but memory wins that are really, really great. Finally, Cotter would say, don't let up, right? We've said to our teachers, we're going to do this thing, and we're going to do it the way it's intended. And this is when they come to us and ask us to change something. We challenge them with, if you get the urge to change something, you need to be able to think and answer this question. Why was it designed that way? And if you can't answer that question, don't change it. And if you can't answer that question, go talk to your coach about it, because we're not going to change a whole bunch of things. One of the other things that we've heard with a knowledge building curriculum is our kids can't learn that. Second graders, they can't learn about like some war, or first graders, they're learning about ancient civilizations. They can't learn that. Oh, they can, and they love it, and they will. We all thought that as adults. We've learned that sometimes we place these unrealistic or these expectations on our kids, but they're not really true, and we've learned that. And then finally, we heard things like, it's not fair, everybody's going to fail because we are just using the assessments that come with the resource. Everybody's going to fail, everybody's going to fail. Actually, no, by the way, I don't want to have a conversation about our grading system. We won't go there right now, but we didn't see a big change in kids going slower or getting lower grades a little bit, but not too bad. And we also, if you look down in the right corner, one of the things that we noticed when we sit in like our SST meetings or benchmark meetings is like our kids would come in and they'd be really, really low on like our benchmark scores. And then you look at their assessment scores and things like that, and they'd be getting like passing scores and things like that. It's like, well, how's that happening? Well, we pulled our quarter grades and correlated them to our benchmark assessment data, and you can see right now they're pretty much dead on, which is actually pretty cool, because we've had that problem of grade inflation for years, we think, in the district. So we're just, again, keeping our foot on the gas. We know it's going to be hard, but not let up. And then finally, make it stick. What are we going to do? Again, like Dr. Sanders said, by 2030, she said she's going to be retired by then. I'm not sure. But what are some big goals that we've got working on right now? Obviously, our core resource is our number one goal right now. But then over the course of the next 3 or 4 years is developing this kind of literacy ecosystem in our school district, right? Like making sure all of our assessments are matched up, all of our interventions are matched up, all of our, everything for our high level kids, our struggling kids, everything is matched up. So it's all good. We're also obviously going to build training opportunities for our staff. We are really interested in and have worked on this and are working on this micro-credentialing process where the company that we're talking to actually goes out and vets all this stuff. So we don't have to, because as you guys probably know and understand, everybody's saying they're aligned to the science of reading right now. Lucy Calkins is as well. I don't know if that's necessarily true. So we're trusting other people, and we're gonna work on that. And then finally, another big thing with our district is cultivating literacy partnerships. We're doing that right now locally with a local college who's embraced the science of reading. We're gonna have 34 of their undergrad students with us in our district practicing the science of reading. Second semester. Next fall, I think they're going to teach a science of reading course right on in one of our buildings, and then send kids out to practice in our classrooms. So we're going to keep cultivating those kind of partnerships. Obviously, we've partnered with Donna and Wisconsin Reads and all kinds of different fun things. So I think the future is bright. So I'm just going to go through. I know I'm running short on time, and I've talked a lot. I'm going to go through a couple of big takeaways. One, you've seen the reading research. It's ginormous. So again, take the time, learn it. It's okay if it takes a year or two. You got to learn it. And by the way, it's subject to change. All good research keeps evolving just a little bit. That's the takeaway we got. Another key takeaway, somebody's got to be the person that just reads it all. If there's someone in your district, if you're a superintendent, you're a chief academic officer, find some guy that likes to just sit in his office and read and not talk to anybody for weeks at a time, and let them read it so they know it. Third, you don't know everything. Your teachers don't know everything. And sometimes you've got to find a good resource and just trust the process and let it happen. Finally, as a leader, you don't need to be William Wallace leading your troops in the battle every single day. Peter Senge in the fifth discipline talks about leadership like a rudder. You're working under the ship, working to steer it in the right direction. Be the rudder. You don't have to be out there, but sometimes you're going to have to battle. So be ready, because it isn't over until every kid leaves our schools reading, and that's that's our motto too, and that's where we're going right now. So I know I talked a lot, but does anybody have any questions for me? I hope I at least made sense or gave people something to think about.
Brady, that was fabulous. Thank you. So good. Any questions? You brought up a really good point in the end, talking about working with the local colleges, because they don't have a place to place their student teachers, because not everyone knows the science of reading. And so if you can start partnering with a local college, what did you call that program? What's it
What's
called?
that?
The one with
I don't know
Colleen.
how to unshare my screen.
Stop share.
Oh, stop share. There it is. Got it. Okay, there we go. What? I'm
No.
sorry. What did you say? What program?
What's that program you're doing with Colleen?
We're just partnering with them. We're building a relationship with them. We're just like you said, we're taking their students. We said, we've got to find this mutually beneficial partnership. We're big. We've been big on that for years in our districts, and it's, hey, you guys are teaching the science of reading. We know you need classrooms, and we'll provide the classrooms. You provide us with the kids. It's a great partnership for us, because we get a little training for our teachers on the side, as well as we get to see kids, and hopefully we create a pretty good pipeline then of people who have been trained in the science of reading, who like our system, and we know them pretty well. So yeah.
Brady's referring to Carroll University in Waukesha, Wisconsin. There is a question. What do you do when your local colleges are not teaching the science of reading?
Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, that's hard. We have several student teachers from different colleges in our buildings right now, and it's funny because we go and we say like, did you learn any of this stuff that we're doing right now? They're like, no. They're like, this is great, and they take it back. So we try to build into those student teachers then, so that they go out, because you know as well as I do that most student teachers are learning more from their practicing teacher than they are their professor back at the system, most of the time. And so we're trying to then just kind of reverse that and say, well, go back and ask your professor this, or share this with your whole class, like what you did and how it worked. And so I think there's a kind of a, stick it to the system that way too, type of thing.
Well,
one of the districts that I worked in, that we had a mismatch between student teachers and what we were expecting of our teachers, we ended up developing like a 2 or 3 page orientation for them, that this is the minimal background knowledge that our teachers are expected to have in, for example, the science of reading. And we would have them go through that with their teacher, and if it wasn't resources they were exposed to yet, they were expected to do a little learning to student teach in our district.
Yeah, and we've been lucky. Like I said, we've been lucky with Carroll. We're going to work with them, hopefully to develop a kind of a partnership or a system of, this is how we're doing it, and then get out there and kind of share with other, because they have the ins with other universities and things like that.
Well,
you can't mandate your way to stuff. You have to.
No, but what really is very influential is and this is how this happened in Wisconsin. I had a discussion with a school district I was consulting with, and she got a brochure from a local university, and it was all about their reading program. And she said, is this science of reading aligned? And I looked at it and I said, nope, this is not. And so she says, I'm going to have a conversation with them. And she did. And that is how they were convinced to at least look at the science of reading, and what it's all about. And lo and behold, they're on board now, because they want to have customers, and so if the local schools don't have customers, they don't have students going there because they're not providing the education that is sorely needed, then they're going to go out of business, and no one wants that. So, you kind of have to, you back them into a wall a little bit, but it's all for the good of the kids. It's all about the kids. Okay, Carol wants to know the 3-page document, Nancy, that you have.
So I just put in the chat that our mismatch was in the area of science with the NGSS standards, not in the area of ELA with the science of reading. But it was just the concept that we decided that there was such a mismatch between our student teachers and what we expected of our teachers, that we needed to do a little orientation so that student teachers could be successful in our classrooms. And we did that with everyone, whether they were there for a week or a month or the whole semester.
There is a Facebook group called Teaching Reading Rocket Scientists, and it is only for higher ed folks, scientists. That's one. And there's also another Facebook called The Science of Reading for Administrators, what your teachers want you to know. And there's some resources on there. There's also the people that head that up are very willing to share their knowledge. So that might be something you might want to look into, because most of you, I think, are administrators. It seems like a lot of you are here.
I will say, Donna, to the other thing that actually our superintendent, Mr. Garza, made us do, which was really cool, is one of the things that when we were reviewing resources, we live in suburban Wisconsin. All you're going to find is balanced literacy here. So
right,
he made us find other high achieving urban or suburban districts across the country and talk to them about every resource that we looked at. And that was so helpful, and it's so rewarding. If you like, for me, like I've developed a group of really close people that I can just go to and talk about the science of reading with, which is really great too. So it's a kind of a fun thing.
And that's what our hope is here too, is that, we have people that we can collaborate together. Just by being on this call, there were 25 people here. And so, if you want, you could look up names and just send them a chat. I mean, that's what it's about. We're trying to collaborate, like you said.
Yeah, and we're happy to answer anything that people need. Just feel free, or we're happy if you have things that you want to. Again, we spent a year and a half doing the research, so we've got tons of stuff. So if anybody needs anything,
That's great.
By all means, just contact me, or Donna can get you in contact with me or whatever, and we're
Sounds
happy
great.
to talk more. We really are.
And this session is being recorded. It will also be posted on the Science of Reading, What I Should Have Learned in College YouTube channel. It will also be sent to you if you're a recipient of this Zoom. I'll send you a copy. It'll be in your email.
Carol, I see. Yeah, absolutely. Send me an email. I didn't put my phone number, but just email me and we can set up something.
Okay. Brady, thanks again.
Yeah. Oh, my pleasure. I'll stay on if people have questions or whatever. I don't know if people can talk.
Okay.
Or, I don't know. I'm happy to. But everybody else, I know you have a good day. It's Friday afternoon.
It's Friday. Have a great weekend. Y'all deserve it. All right.
I'm picking up my leaves this weekend.
You were supposed to do that a couple months ago.
I hired somebody to do it, and I told him you can't. I don't want you to do it until all my leaves fall. Then all my leaves fell, and then it snowed. Then he came out and blew them all in a pile, and then it snowed more. And then he decided to winterize all of his stuff, so he can't pick it up until spring. I'm like, that's not happening.
No, that's not
I
gonna work.
think I had a skunk living in one of my leaf piles because my dog went over and rolled in it the day before Thanksgiving, 2 a.m. in the morning. So I got home and I got in the house and it smelled like a skunk.
Yeah.
So I had to give him 4 baths at 2 in the morning because we're going to my parents' house for Thanksgiving.
I can picture that. Very,
Yeah, it was not fun.
oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Oh, well, what are you gonna do?
All right, I'm gonna end this conversation, just the recording.
Okay.
And I think Nancy and I and you wanted to chat a little bit.
Yep.
'Cause you got some business to take care of.
Yep. I can't believe it. I made it through a whole presentation without swearing. That